intending to do with those weapons? Dr. Ranganathan, I want to come out to you. How do you see this?
Good evening, Rahul, and good evening to all my fellow panelists. First of all, congratulations to Waris Pathan Saab, that the man from his party who said, and I quote, कि अरे हम तो 20 करोड़ हैं, वो 100 करोड़ हैं, लेकिन 15 मिनट के लिए पुलिस हटा दो, फिर देखना कौन किस पे भारी पड़ेगा, unquote, has been acquitted of all charges. It is a great day for justice in our country. Can I come to this topic now? Rahul, we have seen the exodus that happened in Kashmir, we did nothing. We saw the Hindu exodus that happened in Kairana, we did nothing. And we are now seeing the exodus that is happening in Khargon and Karoli, and we are going to do nothing. This will keep on happening. But there is much to say on the Ramnavami violence that has transpired around India, much to apportion blame, much to comment on the reasons behind why these things have been happening for a century, so much so that they were even commented upon by Dr. Ambedkar. But everything pales into insignificance, Rahul, at the tragic news of Shivam battling for his life. I saw the photo of him that you've just shown. A slender 16-year-old lying on a hospital bed, surrounded with tubes and medical equipment. What was his fault? That he was taking part in a Shobha Yatra on what he thought was a joyous day. Rahul, we live in a deeply polarized world, yes. But we never sit back to think why we are polarized, what spews hate, what begets intolerance. I don't understand this. This fear to discuss, this trembling while saying what should be said. Why the selectivity? For every Hindu procession that passes by a mosque and blares music, there is a Muslim procession that passes by a temple and blares music too. But we are offended by only the former. You find Jai Shri Ram provocative, but Deen ke Gaddar Bulao Ali ko not provocative. Why? For every act of bigotry, hate crime, intolerance committed by the Hindus on Muslims, there is a similar act committed by the Muslims on Hindus, but we highlight only the former. Why? The recent Delhi riots, where both Hindus and Muslims took part, where both Hindus and Muslims got killed, were still labeled as an anti-Muslim pogrom. Why? I'll tell you why. It is because we live in a world where you believe what you see. But unfortunately, what you see is written and spoken by those who see what they believe. Objectivity has become that metallic object that must be left behind before you pass through the electronic threshold. The biases don't beep anymore, Rahul. There is awful truth in the fact that there are many more Shivams, and there will be, because while what transpires through religious strife or conflict is a matter of debate in a studio, and I'm not saying it shouldn't be. After all, religion and its primary endowment, which is intolerance, must be discussed and debated. But let's be honest tonight. We are not suffering. Shivam is. We haven't been shot in the head. Shivam has been. We have lived a good chunk of our lives already, Rahul. Shivam's whole life was ahead of him. All those dreams, those aspirations, they lie now alongside Shivam on a ventilator too. Just 10 seconds, Rahul. When will we realize that religion forms the strongest bond, but it is the weakest adhesive? When? But as I said, all this is for another day. Tonight, my thoughts are for Shivam. I hope and pray that he wins this battle. It is important that he does.
Rising. But it doesn't have to be, sir. If the law is upheld, if people equally condemn, like Times Now does, violence of every shade, it doesn't have to be. Dr. Ranganathan made the point. Everyone is selective.
Yes.
Dr. Ranganathan, yes.
Yes, Rahul, very briefly. And you know, this is the nub, the crux of the issue.
Crux.
And this is what our society has been subjected to for the last 8 years, selectivity. It is almost as if to project that all these things were happening for the first time. When people realize that no, this has been happening for decades, then there is a sense of stability that comes in there. Let us solve this. Sir, did I interrupt you? Did I interrupt you, sir?
Yes. These things
sir, please kindly listen. I was listening very patiently. Please.
Yes.
So, Rahul, can I please continue?
Yeah, please.
Yes. So what I mean to say is, and let me take the recent example. You know, we know the Hathras tragedy, terrible tragedy. Government, lackadaisical attitude. There were some, obviously misdemeanor also that happened on by the UP government. But that lasted in the media's eyes for 3 weeks. A parallel that happened yesterday, day before yesterday in Bengal, and despicable, deplorable comments by the politicians, the ruling government. It's not even in the news cycle right now. This is what I mean. So what happens is people always think that we are under fascism, we are under this Hindutva nationalism, everything is happening for the first time. There are trends of Muslim genocide happening. The problem is selectivity. If people realize how to tackle intolerance, how to tackle this kind of things that keep on happening, people will not be selective. But that is the tragedy. Good evening. Ramani sir, please. I've been listening very patiently to all the fellow panelists. Thank you so much. Navika, good evening. Very briefly, there are two issues here. Let me delve into them. One, I am astonished by the shameless, there is no other word, shameless hypocrisy of those outraging that bulldozing homes of rioters is illegal. These are the same Chauthi fail Muppets who supported the blatantly illegal road and highway blockade of Shaheen Bagh and Singhu border in the anti-CA and anti-farm law protest for a collective 2 years. Zyada usse 2.5 saal. Tens of thousands of crores of financial loss. Tens of millions of commuters inconvenienced. Tens of thousands of businesses suffered. But these jackfruits never outraged on the illegalities of these criminal blockades. Lekin aaj inko achanak law yaad aa gaya. But away from these hypocrites and anarchists, Navika, we as citizens have to care about the morality of law and natural justice. And this is my second point, Navika, very briefly. Bulldozing of the homes of rioters is, in my view, illegal and against natural justice. Let me explain. One, even if you want to punish the rioter by demolishing his home, you are punishing also his family, wife and children who are innocent. How can that be right? You can't transfer guilt or culpability in a crime to a relative. That's against natural justice too. In majority of these instances, 41 out of 56, the government is saying that the homes being demolished are on encroached land. That still is illegal and against natural justice in my opinion, because demolishing a home, even if illegal, has to be done after adequate notice according to the High Court, as life and livelihood are at stake. And I'm not even going into the fact of double standards here, of the government sitting idle and doing nothing about illegal encroachment and suddenly waking up to them. Number three, there is, however, a 2009 Justice Hasivam SC judgment that says the property of a rioter can be attached as liability. However, it does not ask or demand or sanction demolition of the said property. So in summary, Navika, just 30 seconds. While I agree that the rioters have to be brought to book and fear instilled in them, punishing them and their innocent families through demolishing their homes is not natural justice. It's not legally watertight, and it appears to be extrajudicial. Arrest the anarchists and the rioters. Punish them using the available section of the IPC. But we know the hypocrisy there as well, don't we? The government actually rewarded them when it repealed the farm laws and let off thousands of these anarchists. Basically, it is a game of who blinks first, who is the bigger bully, who is the bigger vote bank. आपने सवाल पूछा है ना, that is the crux of the issue. अगर इतनी अकल इन लोगों में होती तो आज ये सिचुएशन नहीं देखने को मिलती. द प्रॉब्लम, एज आई रोट इन 2017 और 2014 से चला आ रहा है नाविका, जब से मोदी सरकार आई है, सिलेक्टिविज्म, एक चीज को उठाना. अभी ये आशुतोष इज माय गुड फ्रेंड, बट ही मेंशन्ड अबाउट प्रोवोकेटिव स्लोगन्स. आई डोंट नो व्हाट, एज शहजाद से जय श्री राम कहना प्रोवोकेटिव हो गया इस देश में. जो भी है, what he was meaning to say is कि हिंदू procession, religious procession मस्जिद के पास से गुजर रहा है. That is provocative, slogans provocative है. He did not say what Shehzad also added later on, that if there are n number of Hindu processions passing by the mosque, there are n+1 number of Muslim processions passing by temples. They are saying कि आज खत्म करते हैं पूरा, अली को बुलाते हैं. एक भी स्टोन पेल्टिंग नहीं हुई. वो आशुतोष बता नहीं रहे. This is the problem. आप एक चीज को बड़ा के बताते जाएंगे, दूसरी चीज को छुपाते जाएंगे, तो लोगों को लगेगा कि भाई इस देश में कम्युनल स्ट्राइक चल रही है, मुस्लिम जेनोसाइड होने वाला है. जबकि रियलिटी है कि इस देश में हमेशा से इंटॉलरेंस थी और इंटॉलरेंस है और रहेगी. आखिरी 10 सेकंड, आशुतोष कह रहे हैं प्रोवोकेशन, हेट स्पीच में नरसिंहानंद या जो भी उनको पकड़ा क्यों नहीं गया. आशुतोष, अगर आज लाइव टीवी पे गट्स हैं तो यह बता दो कि पॉलीथीस आर द वर्स्ट ऑफ क्रीचर्स 98.6, क्या ये हेट स्पीच है कि नहीं? आशुतोष बता दो, अगर हिम्मत है बता दो.